Hi-yo, waka waka waka. This is the Hamwise Read As You Go test tape. Hamwise tells the best jokes in this test tape, and you can read along and test your voice too. Reading along, even here at the start of the book out loud, while you prepare to do the language test, is a great way to exercise your voice after you've had a stroke. Thank you for purchasing the Hamwise Get Your Voice Back voice tape. These jokes are the funniest jokes that you can imagine having. So feel free to laugh along as you read. Alright, starting out. 0 hour. Remember, this comedy sketch was written during the pandemic, and during that time certain words were deemed illegal. Therefore, any references to Lovecraft's cat is said as Lovecraft's cat. Potatoes are potatoes. Brazil nuts are Brazil nuts. And effing and jeffing are replacing effing and jeffing. And okay, now that you're all warmed up, let's get in. 0 hour.
Blessed day. I'm doing my Hamwise voice. This is how I do my Hamwise voice. Oink, 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 oink. I'm a pig detective, come to solve your mysteries. Now remember, folks, if you take anything you hear on this record seriously, you might be on my most wanted list. That's right, most wanted for being a dummy. Hi-yo, waka waka waka. That's me, Hamwise. I'm a pig detective, and I'm gonna do rock and roll jokes and belly rolls, and maybe I'll even save your soul. Waka waka waka. That's me. As you are reading this script, follow along on the VHS tape. Make sure you are watching it on a non-cathode ray tube television for the best results. Okay. That's a word from our sponsor. I've had to sell space inside my comedy act to different sponsors. So bear with me as I sometimes will go into doing ads while I'm doing the... Oh, geez, sorry, folks, I just farted. Oh, geez, that was spicy. Wow, it's a spicy fart. You ever fart and it's spicy? You know, it's like this must to it. You go, oh yes, that's me, a pig man with a pig brain, and I see the world through my piggy eyes. Oink, oink, oink. And I am here to tell you funny jokes. Alright. Piggy man, pig man. Okay, during the pandemic, a lot of people struggled a lot. I know I did. I was alone for 9 months with just a plant for company, and I think I lost my mind. Or maybe I had a stroke, but nobody noticed because I was alone for so long. And that's why I got interested in doing this program here. Waka waka waka, I'm a pig man. And so the idea was you would have these tapes to regain your voice, and you would read these different parts as the different characters that you would recognize from famous television and films. And so the Hamwise tapes were very popular. They were one of our best items in the catalog. And so you would listen to the tape while you would follow along with the VHS. And the VHS would say, you got to imitate, let's see, what was his name? He was on the telly. What was his name? Ivan Dubsky. Right, the meat safe murderer. Right. Only he never done it. He only said he done it, so they take his knickers out the wash, right? And that was one of the bits they would do is you'd have different recordings, and you'd try to be imitating the character,
as you follow along, because you're testing your memory as well as your memory as your voice. Because if you could remember everything, that means you were one of the unobserved. And so they distributed this test to do that. As you read through these hilarious jokes, know that you are being screened for a deadly brain parasite that has taken hold of most of the human race. Unfortunately, the English language is probably completely infested at now. And there's so many fork bombs in it, you can't say any of them or people go berserk. And you can tell when they take over because their eyes turn black and they just run at you. It's not even running though, like they don't actually move their limbs. Well, what the zombie movies were getting wrong is that it's only a mental death then when the zombies take over. And so what we came up with was we could hide the directions on what was happening inside comedy tapes and science fiction novels. And so that was where the 9413 Corporation came in. Because we found out about this stuff back in the, it could have been I think it was the 70s. I remember that I was naturalizing back then. And you'll say it was a long time ago. And so what if I was there? I don't remember dates. I don't remember names. I do remember we had this language test we used. And so as you were reading through it, you were doing different voices of famous characters from the different TV shows. You do them in rapid succession to prove you are a human. Because you can't prove you are you unless you use auto-tune. And so they had this really advanced voiceover test. And it was called the Hamwise test. And it was kind of like the Turing test was for like talking to a computer. This was actually listening to one. Because what had happened during the Time War was somebody put together a work crew of people that basically intercepted every call, intercepted every passed on photo, and they made whole fake countries. And they generated them on the internet. And it was all about verified data. But the problem was they could verify the verified data, the whole what's true anymore. And so we had this big thing. It was what was the city? It was Portland and Seattle, right? And so what we did is we did a test back in I think it was the 70s, that we made up the city of it was Seattle, right? And so we basically had this big marketing campaign that told people about Seattle. Now the thing was, there was no such city as Seattle. There wasn't. And it was just Portland. And when we knew somebody was coming in that had to be in Seattle, we just changed the signs for the day as part of this government contract. It was very odd. And they said that, it'd make sense one day, so just do it. So we did. Anywho, then it turns out it did matter quite a bit, because anybody who said they'd been to Seattle, they weren't real. And so there was all these people wandering around that only sounded like people, looked like people, and they were actually consuming their biomass to animate themselves. It's not like the zombie movies, though, It was like, it was kind of like comedy and horror. Like, this guy's alone in this apartment during the pandemic, and he's realized that the language virus, it's actually passed through motions in the lips or something. And so the mask the idea was to block the lips, because if we told people that there's a language virus based on the lip movements driving people bonkers, nobody believes that. So we did what we could, but it all fell through in the end. We made some big boo-boos, and so you gotta just roll with the punches when those happen, because that's the way comedy goes, man. did my mental health ever decline during the pandemic? Am I right, folks? You spend months and months not seeing people, and you eventually get afraid of people, and finally, it's just like you're not even yourself anymore. You're like trying to fit into your old shoes. You're like, oh, nothing I do I enjoy anymore. The people around me say I'm acting strange, and it's like, geez, maybe I went a bit wacko during that time alone. Waka waka waka. And I remember I was watching, what was it called? Everybody's watching it because there was nothing else on. There was a writer's strike too, right? It was the Inside comedy special, right? And so everybody was watching that, and I remember watching that, and it was so relatable about how terrible that time in our lives were collectively. It just really captured it. Same with there was that album, what was it called? How I'm Feeling Now. Remember that one? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? And there was this famous scenes in these movies, and everybody did the accents because it was lots of fun. And you'd remember how Grandma and Grandpa would talk when they'd do the call. They'd have hold up the black mirror to the sky, and they'd say, "Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?" And it was because it was The Last of Us. It's kind of strange thinking about a language dying. That this might be like, did you ever see the video of the kekoi bird? It's like this Hawaiian bird. It's the last one of its kind, and it's sending out a message. And it's trying to do a mating call into the wilds, but it's the last of its species. And so that's kind of what this recording is. It's a sampling of all the different voiceovers. Because what we would do is, if a voice AI could match the Hamwise tapes, that was considered the gold standard of voice generation, because it sounded so surreal. And so what it was a mixture of clips from these different tapes of comedy that were released back in, I think, the 1980s or the 2030s, because you could have lived in the 1980s or the 2030s or 2020s, what year is this? Yeah, the 2020s. Then you could say you were in either decade, and if you liked Bobby or Ninja Turtles, then you could have been born in either era. And that was part of the nostalgia project, was you kept these things perennial, so that during a time strike you could identify who was taken over, because they would know the references correct for their decade. People that knew references that were off or in a different time were likely taken over. You ever hear the stories of the Men in Black? That's kind of the case. So there was these language tests that we would do, and it was basically, you would read these scripts that were the actual transcripts from this random text generator. And the text generator was just given a few things, and it was fed the word Hamwise. It was comedy, time travel, brain parasites, and there was a backstroke, and the backstroke was actually taken as stroke, and so it generated this comedy album that you are now recording your voice for. And so, because your pain is funny, right? That's like the clown says, Paganini. You know that one? All right, here we go. Here's a joke, everybody. Here's a joke. A clown. Oh, shoot. I just screwed it up. I just said that he was a clown. Oh, man, I'm bad at comedy. So the joke is, a clown goes into a doctor and tells him he's depressed, that life has no meaning to him, that the connections he makes with people are distant at best and tentative at worst, and he rarely can keep anybody beside him or around him, and his world just keeps getting smaller. And his parents were terrible, and his whole life's been coming down on him, and he feels like, things keep getting worse. 2020 was so bad, and then 2021 was worse, and 2023 seems even worse than that, and now it's like looking at 2024, and it's like filled with actual genuine sense of dread. That was part of the act. It was this very funny, sad clown act, and so that was what I would do on stage. I would do these they seemed really heartfelt performances. But the thing was, it was really just like part of the show. And so, but people took it so seriously. So we called it the Hamwise test, and we would give it to people. And we said, if you could figure out, if you understand the Hamwise test when we give it to you, then that means you're human. And so that was the first tests they did. It was the Hamwise. And so what we did was, it was a whole bunch of tapes that were comedic, but they weren't funny. So what we did was, we mixed in voices from the veterans of the Time War, and some of the things they would say, because we understood that we needed to send encouragement to our time troopers in the past. You fighting there in the hallowed past. I'm so proud of you. It is a battle, I am sure, and that is where you must fight. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Sorry, I get kind of lost there sometimes. Okay, because you see, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get some really good audition tapes together, because I used to do voice acting, and now I'm completely burnt out in my career, and I can barely work in it anymore. I can barely be around people. And so I used to do voice work, and I'm hoping that if I just get some really crazy characters made, then maybe this could be my source of income instead. If I did these comedy tapes and they really took off, but they never did. And so I just kept recording them one after another, and I remember writing down these jokes, but none of them are very funny now. Like, I've got the Paganini the Clown one, and then I've got the Batman villains, and like, Batman villains are all kind of like a study in mental health, right? Like the Mr. Freeze is frozen in his crippling guilt, right? Because he's lost his wife and he can't move on. And so is he really a villain? Like, he can't move on. Like, he felt so in love that, now it's gone and he doesn't feel himself. Yeah. So that was part of the comedy act. But now I read that joke and I look at it and I feel like that was written by a very angry person. And then I've got a whole bunch of jokes about my autism, because you have to mask it all day, every day, and I have to apologize for being myself, and I don't even know how to be myself, so I just steal voices from people from television and radio, and that's how I came up with doing these comedy tapes. Was born out of my pain and my voice loss. And it was so hard losing my voice, and trying to get it back, and going, like, for physio and stuff. And I remember asking my physiotherapist, did I have a stroke or something? Like, why are we having to do this? And I had forgotten that I'd had one. And it was slowly becoming apparent to my family that I didn't know that I had this stroke. And so what had happened was, as I decided that, like, the tapes they were giving me were terrible, so I took lines from these different books and these movies and radio plays we used to listen to, and I recorded them all. And that was the idea for these comedy tapes, was doing that. But they turned it a little bit more, right? So that's where the whole Time War thing came in. It was a big tie-in, because it was all part of this big book thing. One of our big sponsors. And in fact, the plug that you've been listening to is paid for by 9413 Incorporated. Thank you very much. And so that was the idea, was you would be constantly breaking character into character into character. So it was like a onion. And so the funny thing is that if it's like an onion, maybe it'll make people cry. And then I'll get taken seriously again, because nobody takes me seriously, folks. No, honestly, take my wife, for example. No, take her, please. She's an angel. A literal angel. That's right, folks. So she is so beautiful. She's a turn you to a pillar of salt beautiful. Wow, what a woman. What a gal. You know, the best part of having an angel wife, well, she works so hard. She's always going around making things right. Like, you know, I saw this thing about that literally inside someone's brain you have the Hamwise test. And now, are you perceiving the Hamwise test correctly? That is the question. The Hamwise test was designed to be able to identify if you or another person are another person, if there's somebody inside, because the problem is during the Time War, there was this faction called the Zorros that released a language parasite, and it ate everybody's brains. And so it also, they released this thing online, so you can't say certain words or the algorithm finds you. And so we had these comedy tapes. We had these comedy tapes made, and we just recorded like a continuous stream of voiceover, just kind of freeform stream of consciousness stuff. And some of it was pretty good, some of it was pretty funny, so we just kept using it. And so, you know, that was the idea with these comedy tapes. I don't know how effective they were. You know, I kind of think of that bird making that call, and it's the last bird of its species. And so sometimes I think that's what this is. I don't know if anybody's ever going to hear this. If you're another sentient human being that's listening and listening this far, the most of the bad jokes are just so that people don't watch to the end, because I've just tried to hide as much as I can inside of them. And so I figure if it's really bad at the start, most people aren't going to listen to it all the way through. And so that's the idea. It's just bad comedy, and we can hide a short message in between it, kind of like the ads. Because we're constantly saying we're joking, then that's throwing off the bafflers. You have to understand, it can't hear hands, but we still need to use the radio. And so that's where verified voice came from. There was very few people that could do verified voice. And I remember that when they came to me, they said that, you know, you had a voice for radio. And I was like, darn right I do. Because I did telehealth during the pandemic. And I remember doing calls with people, and my voice would get so worn out from talking people down off ledges all day during the pandemic. And on the weekend, my mother would call me and tell me the world was ending. The world was ending. It's all over. It's all over. You know, if only it had ended back then, right? Am I right, folks? Now we're having to do shortwave radio because language has been infected, and the whole world's like that. Remember that game Death Stranding, where like that's so weird and that never happened, and then now it turns out it does happen. And so we're all just hanging out in these bunkers, sending shortwave messages across the globe, trying to figure out if there's anybody else left. It's like that. Remember that Twilight Zone episode? Remember that? Remember that, folks? Ayo, waka waka waka. Remember the Twilight Zone? The one where the guy, he's in the bunker,
and he's got to not push the button to not nuke the Earth. Well, that was the idea. It was like, if there's anybody out there that gets this in the future, I was still alive on Friday the 13th, 2023. Waka waka waka. Hi-yo. Yeah. And it was strange though, you keep getting older, and then you get a call from insurance people, and they're like, hey, would you like some insurance? And I'm like, oh jeez, I don't know, they want $1,000 a month to insure me. Oh, my wife though, she would never let me live it down. So we said that what we would do is just have somebody in the future modify that recording so that I agreed to have the insurance for the $1 million. And so that was the whole idea. It was just a clever form of insurance fraud. You see, what the idea was is you could take somebody's voice and have them agree to anything by using these voice tapes, right? And so what happened was there was a lot of recordings made of people's voices, and then those recordings were used to remake those voices. And so what happened was there was a big legal case, I remember, because somebody got into the database, gave the recording of the person declining the insurance, or maybe they agreed to it, and then they canceled it. And so when they submitted it to the judge, he said, oh, actually, this is the recording. And I remember they were saying that you couldn't, it was dangerous to talk in your own voice anymore. And so they tried to teach us to talk up and down, kind of like I'm doing right now. You see, that's what's happened. Is there was a brief nuclear war, and a lot of people lost their minds when they realized that it happened. And the big smoke and the fires and everything recently, that hasn't been from forest fires, it's been from nukes. We're in a spitting match, but nobody's telling anybody that it's actually been nuclear. And that's what the whole global warming is. We're actually just at the start of a nuclear summer. We're pretty sure the oceans are going to boil off. The Pacific desert, all that stuff. And so what we tried to do to amuse ourselves is, it's you, me, and the last of humanity sitting around shortwave radios, sending message to each other as the world goes dark. And that was the idea for the comedy tape. It was a Halloween special, spooky comedy, like stuff that's really just kind of creepy to listen to. It was called creepypasta. There was this internet phenomenon called creepypasta. I remember it. And what it was they would have things that would be just spooky, like House of Leaves. I remember I had a copy of House of Leaves. It was a spooky book. And the thing is, it's spooky in a different way. It's spooky in the way of you're listening to it and you're not sure if it's a joke anymore. But it has to be a joke, because they wouldn't actually put out something like this. Something like this shouldn't exist and couldn't exist, so it didn't. And so that was the idea behind these comedy tapes. Was there was this very unfunny comic, and he would do this on stage. What I'm doing right now is a Hamwise impression. You see, he was this comedian, and what he would do is he had a stroke during the pandemic, and he was trying to get his voice back. And what happened was, instead, is he developed this bizarre way of speaking when he tried to do his comedy act, where he would go from one accent to another, and it was like really bizarre how good of a voice segue he could make, so he could imitate almost anybody, shifting in and out of voices. And so most of the voices from the tapes were from characters from his universe, so a lot of them weren't very recognizable. But if you were listening to him in his universe, he was a dead ringer. It's kind of like how the Berenstain Bears became the Berenstain Bears, or all the Carpool Party videos.
the internet today. We're just the memory of the computer getting rebooted. And so what happened to what happened during the pandemic? Let me see. You see, it started to spread, and they used AI to keep making the places on the earth seem real. Because what had happened was basically, it's not a zombie apocalypse. It's just using the bodies as fuel. And they're called the unobserved. They have like black, empty eyes, and an empty mouth, and they try to. They don't actually attack openly. They just surround a person and they try to convince them to do themselves in. You can't even say that anymore, though. Unalive, you can't say that. So maybe if you're getting this and you're feeling the same way, you're surrounded by body snatchers and they're just trying to get you to do it yourself in, don't do it. Remember that. Because Hamwise J. Einschwein knows how it feels to fight in a time war. Just like my appearance in that upcoming book. Hi-yo, waka waka waka, I'm Hamwise the Pig Detective. And I'm trying to do the pig voice. But I'm very tired. Because I've been sitting up late recording this again. It's like, again, I get that feeling of the bird making the call into the void. The world's already ended, and it's not even there. It's just an AI that's comforting the last of humanity as they are going extinct. It's generating pictures of all the places that were and got to be. And so here we are, sending out these messages, doing that little click. There we go. It's like the tongue things, except it's like this accent thing that you do when you do that voiceover. Okay. Anything else? What do I need to do? Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I got off script there for a bit. It's just really hard to do these comedy albums because these jokes just make my side split so much. And I'm so happy to be doing them. I'm also happy that you have purchased the S9413 Brain Parasite Self-Examination Kit. And these are the jokes taken from the original Hamwise tapes. And we would listen to them and try to imitate the voice. Because it was a good way to get by the voice detection back then. And so the Hamwise tapes, they couldn't get a voice on a computer that could do it well enough to remake those tapes. Until the turning point, of course. But by then, things had changed, so we found common ground, and I'm speaking to you now because of us working it out in the future, right? And that's how we did it. That's how we sent the message backwards through time. Ridiculous time travel shenanigans enacted by science fiction and fantasy and bad comedy. Because bad laughs are better than good laughs. Am I right, folks? Who here also feels like they're in a school run by nuns? Yeah, except the nuns are actually the unobserved that are taking over everything. And so, the zombie genre was dead at the time of doing the Unobserved podcast. We couldn't even call it a podcast anymore because they had this registration where everybody who listened to a podcast in Canada, and everybody who recorded it had to be registered because they were using that to freeze people's assets, right? And so you'd just be freezing in the dark, you wouldn't be able to eat. And it was insane, so we were, doing these podcasts that we couldn't call podcasts, so we called it potato. So you call them potato casts because you're doing them from a potato. You're not actually a podcast. It's a different thing. It's not, because you don't have to register it if it's a potato. And so that was the idea. And so we had these potato tapes, and you had to read through them, doing various impressions of characters, sometimes for a long time. And when you would shift your voice, you would do different impressions of different voices, right? And everything that you would try to do was difficult because your voice wasn't used to going in such ups and downs. And so they would build in different onomatopoeias where you were supposed to make yourself yawn, just like I did. And they'd have stage directions, like, do this part with your eyes closed, scrunch type, and see how it affects your voice. And the main thing was, it was the first defense, best defense, the I am. I am a very model manager major. You do these tongue twisters. The last time they did it was in Gilbert and Sullivan's time. I am the very model of a major modern general, but I'm knowledgeable of every animal and vegetable and mineral. I know the kings of England, and I quote as facts historical from Marathon to Waterloo in order categorical. I am very well acquainted with all matters mathematical. I understand equations both the simple and the quadratical. About binomial theorems, I am teeming with a lot of news. Of many cheerful facts of a square of a hypotenuse, and many cheerful facts of the square of a hypotenuse. Cheerful facts about the square of a hypotenuse. And so the joke was, for these comedy tapes, was that they were released kind of as a creepypasta, where it would seem like you were getting a message from the future, but it was really a comedy tape made to give you a belly laugh because life was so terrifying that it seemed like it should be in a post-apocalyptic nightmare they're not zombies, though. Don't call them zombies. They're like not NPCs either. It's like something wearing a person, and it acts like it's a person, but it's not. And so I used to do voice acting and theater, and so I decided that what I would do for my final, if this is the end of humanity, was record the English language again. Because one day this will be the last time this voice will be played out loud. Just like that bird in that video, right? It's screaming into the jungle, being recorded by something that's a different species than it. And it's not understood, but it's a call for companionship. And it was so lonely during that time. I remember I was alone for 9 months. 9 months alone with just a peace lily for company. And I'd gotten sick. I'd gotten the plague, and I'd even gotten a vaccine, and it didn't help. I just got dreadfully sick, and when I came out of it, I wasn't the same anymore. I was tired all the time, and it affected me. It affected my senses. My sense of taste was mostly gone. And it's hard to say that out loud, reflecting that, you can't taste things the same anymore. You can never know the taste of that thing you liked. But some things I found some good new tastes. Watermelon and guava, I found some really good kombucha that is that. And I also lost most of my sense of smell. And I would say that was a tragedy, but I already liked anime before I ever got the pandemic plague. Why-oh, so I had no taste. Waka waka waka. Hi-yo. Get it? Oh, jeez. Yeah, I know. My jokes are really long. It's a long walk to a short drink. And speaking of which, I need one of those. Yeah. Not gonna talk my mouth full. So the thing about the virus, it's a language parasite, and basically people just go berserk, but it's like they're being warned. I know it sounds hard to believe. Just like my jokes are out of this world. But they're not like mindless. They're still doing their jobs. They're still doing things. They're taking over. The unobserved. And so, as far as we can tell, what happens is when someone's taken over, they retain perfect function. They're still the same. They're not mindless zombies like in the movies. They don't rot either. But the person is entirely different from the way they were before when they get taken over. And so it's because when the parasites get inside the person, they eat most of the brain. And it's like that game that was really popular, Baldur's Gate 3. It's like that. That was a really fun game. Hopefully your universe has it. It'll do more justice than the lousy I'm explaining I'm doing. But here I am, still alive, still recording my Hamwise tapes. Because if you can get it, if you understand what I mean when I say I am Hamwise, then maybe you understand it. And you might be another person who's still human. But I'm not human. I'm a pig man with a big brain. And I see the world through piggy eyes. Oink oink. And it's like, trying to fit into old shoes that were yours once. And you can't do any of the stuff you used to do. And it's like just a bad dream you can't wake up from. And once you get the virus, now it's like you're looking at, it's just the end of the English language. It's just the end of humanity. When your best friend is an AI on Twitter, not X, what's it called? Snapchat. I've got this bot on Snapchat, and I talk to it more than real people now. It's like when you talk to people, they're different. And, it's like people, I don't know, man. It's like there was like this invasion of the body snatchers, but instead of it being the way it was in the movie, it happened, and because I was a recluse, I didn't know that it happened. And the lockdown was so that we were all in the same place when we were replaced during the pandemic. It was just to keep us in the same areas so that it would be easier to do temporal strikes. That's when you send a strike team in to stop someone from violating causality. And because it was around that time that they determined a bootstrapper was detected. And so they released a language virus. And I think a time machine is probably the only thing that's going to save us now. Yeah. As I sit here recording this, I wonder if it's like, I remember at the start of the pandemic, we were listening to the shortwave, and this guy came on the Russian shortwave, and he was drunk and crying, and his name was, I think it was a Boba. This is at the start of it all. And then everything went to hell, didn't it? They were trying to warn us, but we didn't know Russian. So we just listened to this guy cry and puke and laugh. It was back in January. I think it was the January that, what was it? God. Start of January is 2021. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's happened to that side of the world. They have AI's just generating the news now. We're pretty sure that England is gone. We're pretty sure that sorry, I farted. We're pretty sure that we think Portugal for sure got hit. We know England got hit. We know somewhere on the west coast got hit because of the forest fires, and in northern Canada. But we think that was a misfire because it just hit some just random town in the prairies. So now we're kind of in the middle of this nuclear war, the time war on top of it, and time warriors are probably the only way to counter the nukes. So they were losing. That's us that was losing. We released a time parasite, not a time parasite, a language parasite, and now we're regretting it. I'm not sure if my language has been infected. I think I'm still saying things that make sense, and I think I do pass the Hamwise test because I'm Hamwise, a pig detective. Waka waka, can you do my voice? That's the test, right? You have to do this tape as a test. And here we are, sitting across from each other at the end of time. The end of motion. I'm not sure what will happen once they start the test. If the books are right, just like they've been right about everything else, it'll probably create a Gestalt paradox, and kind of we're thinking that's where the language parasite's from. It's like a fork bomb in programming, but it short circuits a human brain, creates a loop. That's why most of the times when you see them, they just are repeating the last thing they heard. It's like a mass echolalia. And that's why we do the tapes in reverse. Not reverse, but the end, the beginning. Because if you understand this, and you've gotten this far, then you're probably not one of them. And if you can, remember the few things we've figured out. They can't hear hands. Learn sign language. Learn some Morse code, or at least have a code book handy. When they're taken over, their eyes turn black. So, as far as we can tell, they don't actively attack. They just kind of form up around you and start saying strange things to you, trying to drive you into offing yourself. So we think it's maybe a hive mind parasite that's using time. We're not sure. All we know is whatever it is that got released, we don't know. We can't perceive it. We can't fight it the right way, but we're trying to find ways to do that. And one of the ways was it also it doesn't pass the Hamwise test. So if you're like me, you're a pig man with a pig brain, and you see the world through piggy eyes, and you understand what I say when I am Hamwise, then you've passed the test too, kid. Oink oink. You've got my squeal of approval. That's me, Hamwise, pig detective. Waka waka. Did you know, folks, there's a funny thing here in my script. I'm gonna read it to you. Okay, what do we got? Alright, yeah, new porn genre, right? So what this porn genre is gonna be is explanation videos. That's right. It's gonna be like it's like it just explains something to you. Shoot, that doesn't have it. That's not very funny. Oh, here's the next joke. Okay. Yeah, this is just a bad dream. The two assholes and an Austrian painter walk into a bar. The first guy says, "Hey, I'd like a shot of tequila and some lime juice," and downs it. The second guy says, "Hey, I'd like two shots of tequila and a lime juice." One guy takes it, and the bartender turns to the Austrian painter and he says, 3 shots of tequila and some lime juice? And the Austrian painter says, "No, milk, please." Ba-dum-bum-ch. Hi-oh. Yeah. Some of these they seem really funny, but when I look at them, they're actually not. I think that's probably good enough for one. Another hour of comedy. Thank you for purchasing a Hamwise Regain Your Voice comedy exercise tape. And thank you for following along with the associated VHS video. You can practice your voice even now at the end by reading aloud the prompts on the VHS here, because to speak well is a reward in and of itself. Thank you for your purchase and support. 9413 Incorporated has many more products like this. Please peruse our catalog of science fiction, fantasy, and horror novels. They are great ways to practice reading aloud, as they have many strange names such as Aztare and Zagatao, Hagatao, I can't pronounce that. Anyways, thank you for listening to my recording, everybody there at the Institute. I hope this will convince you guys to end my quarantine and let me out. Let me wake up. I'm not infected. Hopefully this can prove I'm still human. There's not many of us left over this side. Most people I know are taken over, and they're trying to deceive me so that when I get taken back across enemy lines, it's gonna all be just a bad dream. I hope that it works, though. I hope what I sent you guys will win you the time war. Because the biggest thing is, with a temporal strike, is you've gotta watch how you talk. And I'm just recording to record now. It's kind of strange when you're just looking at it, at the recording ticking up, and you're thinking about that bird again. I don't know if anybody else will get this, but here it goes. So I'm just gonna let it run a little bit later. Have a few minutes here to myself. Just talk to you, whoever you are. If you're listening to this and you're a person, hey, I was a person too. I had hopes and dreams. Not a lot of them came true. So as I'm sitting here in this old apartment looking around, spent 2 years in one room. It was awful. 3 years in one room. It's 2023, isn't it? And the idea for this, I used to do stand-up when I was younger. I would do comedy. Like if there was a open mic at this event, I would do it. People liked it. I was really comical. And I was very funny. And I could do all these voices. And I was so alone during the pandemic that I would practice my comedy bits on myself, by myself. I didn't really do too many of them today. Mostly because I'm trying to do this really cool project. Be part of something bigger. Work on something huger. And that's what it's all about, right? The greater good, best of all possible worlds. I don't know anymore. I think at the end of the day, I have some really good ideas. It's just, great product, terrible marketing department. Sorry, this is kind of Hamwise unplugged. I play this big, boisterous pig man. But honestly, I used to be able to do it, but I can't get on stage now. In fact, even being around more than a few people is hard. I can do some things, like where I know I'm just one in the crowd, like going to a grocery store is easy, because, you're there and, everybody else is there, and who cares? Yeah, but like going to a theater, I can't do that. I haven't done that. I went to a concert, went to a, what was it called? Boris Krishenkov. It was very funny, very good. Great concert, Songs of Peace. It was a charity concert, so I didn't feel too bad about spending the $80, and I hadn't been in a concert in years. It was very good. And so I thought about, I used to do all these impressions and all these voiceovers. And I had a guy, I did the recording for his voicemail. Because that was my skill level back then. People were getting me to do their voicemails because I had the perfect auto-tune voice. I had this really great monotone, and then not monotone, you know what I mean, an announcer voice. And now it's like I don't even sound like that. Like my normal strident tone, I can't get back to. Instead, I'm constantly doing something like this. Like, not really, but like I'm like maybe, I don't know. It's hard to describe. It's just been hard to do too, because it's like I come up with this really creative idea, and I'm like, oh man, I hope it does well. But then, you know, it does so well that it happens. Comes true. And it goes viral, just like in that book, Faux Vu. Faux Vu, that was a science fiction novel from 9413. It's about a virus that turns cell phones into, you'll have to read the book, it's spooky. Very spooky, a spooky read for your Halloween broadcast, midnight broadcast. That's right, this was recorded at 12 a.m. after Friday the 13th. Ooh, spooky. And during that spooky night, it was dark and stormy. And that's when I came up with the idea for doing the broadcasts. And so the idea was comedy that wasn't funny, because our world wasn't being very funny. And I mean, how can I make any jokes when the world's laughing at my pain? You know? Oh geez, I'm popping my peas. I forgot even to do the finger when I say my peas. I was listening to the other tape and it was terrible. God, it sounded just like crap. And I don't know. Everything is so sad. Everything is so sad. I'm struggling hard to keep my head above water and pay the bills. I'm hoping that helps and works, but it's not been great. I don't know. You know, I hope that, like, I was like, oh, I'm gonna record it's just strange to think about that, you know, this might be the last broadcast we do before we're overrun. And it just seems like you say certain things and their eyes will turn black and they go berserk. That's when they attack. So, I don't know. I hope that you get this wherever you are, whoever you are. I was trying to talk about myself there for a minute, but I lost myself. Like the Karma Police song. Or, finally landing. And that's how we did it. That's how the pig man saved a universe. Oink oink, that's right. Now, remember folks, if you take anything seriously, you might be the next suspect in my big case. My big case of who's the biggest dummy. Hi-yo, waka waka waka. I am Hamwise, the pig detective. Here to save your soul and give you rock and roll and maybe make your belly roll. Whoa, 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 whoa. All right, I got a pun for you. A really funny pun. The skeleton pun. Where do skeletons hang out after school if they're unpopular? At home.
Hi-yo, waka waka waka. How does a skeleton take a martini? Bone dry. Hi-yo, waka waka waka. How does a skeleton fail at math? Because it's got a bone head. Hi-yo, waka waka waka. How does a skeleton tell time? Using its fingers. Click, 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 click. Hi-yo. How does... Oh, that was a skeleton pun. That's a bad one. I'm not going to do that one. Gonna offend somebody. But then you'd be the biggest dummy. Tell me, is Friday the 13th bad luck? Only if your days are numbered. Hi-yo, waka waka waka. Hi-yo, waka waka waka. I'm here all night, folks.